There's a 78.9% chance we're live.
Oh, so don't say anything stupid, right, Jeff?
Yes.
All right. We got that all out of my system a minute ago. All right, y'all. We're back with another episode of Let's Talk Fish. This is only, and I apologize, like our 5th or 6th episode for the year, and that's due to Thrift and I's schedule. But we have a substitute tonight. Mr. Todd Goad from Pulse Fish Lures and the MPFL Pro came all the way down from East Tennessee to be with us on this special show. So thanks for joining us, Todd.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
And Todd, along with his long distance traveling he did to come be on the show, we got a cool trivia question. First of all, we always have a trivia giveaway at the end of the show. And Todd is kind enough to put together a pretty awesome prize pack sponsored by Pulse Fish Lures for tonight's trivia question. I'll let you tell them what we're giving away. Don't do like I do and tell them to answer the trivia question or anything like that. But tell them what we're giving away at the end of the show tonight.
It's going to be a really cool giveaway. We're going to give away a tumbler, a Pulse tumbler like this one. We're going to give away some of Matt's spinning PJs. We're going to give away some of our new Ultra Vibe spinner baits that were just released last week. And
The
we're
Night Vibe,
the
right?
Night Vibes.
The
yep.
Night Vibes.
And we're going to give away a hat, too. So really cool giveaway.
And speaking of the spinning PJ, you want to tell them what we got going on?
Let's hold that till the end of the show.
Okay, all right.
that?
We're gonna hold that till the end of the show. Yeah. Well, okay. I can't say anything without giving it away, so I'm just gonna shut up. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show. All right, moving forward, we do want to give a big shout out to Angler's Choice. Angler's Choice Marine is the presenting sponsor of Let's Talk Fish. They are responsible with a lot of things you see right here in the studio, our equipment, the fact that we're able to do this and give back to y'all because, Let's Talk Fish is about, sharing our experiences as professional anglers with y'all, along with educating, telling us what we've learned over the years, whether we, did it wrong or did it right, because we've done a lot of things wrong in order to learn what to do right. Our career has depended on it, as a matter of fact. You saw the topic title of the show was 2 top 15s. Todd coming off a top 10 in the last NPFL event on Watts Bar. We had to make it top 15s. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it 2 top 10s because Matt screwed that up by finishing 13th at Pickwick, the last elite event that we just came off of and just got home from Sunday night. And by the way, congrats to my Toyota teammate, Brandon Lester. Honestly, I can't think of a more deserving individual, and here's why. Brandon is one of those guys that I think, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, Luke Duncan had him on his podcast recently. And the title of the podcast was like the most underrated professional angler. Mm-hmm. And when you say underrated, you can somewhat be underrated when you don't have a big win under your belt. Because what a win does is it brings a little bit more notoriety to your name and your brand, mm-hmm. right? It brings a little bit more credibility to your brand. You can finish second 100 times. Well, you can't finish second 100 times, but you can finish second a lot, and people still don't recognize the name as a household name, so to speak. But when you win a tour-level event, that changes. It changes instantly. And Brandon is a very deserving individual. He's a guy who has finished second multiple times, is a phenomenal fisherman, just happens to be part of Team Toyota. So he's a pretty smart individual. He drives a Tundra everywhere he goes, all over the country. Todd, you're not allowed to respond to that since you're a Chevrolet guy.
I love Toyotas. I've had my share of Toyotas, too.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
And you're driving a diesel now. You might be somewhat regretting that lately, huh?
I'm regretting it a little bit. But
hey, you don't have to. Well, you do have to take off to Saginaw Bay here for long.
I do, yeah.
And I don't know. You might want to be looking to rent a Tundra or something.
You never know, yeah.
I don't know. I'm dreading our New York trip. Always looking forward to going up there and fishing. But I'm already sitting here projecting gas prices for New York by the time we go here in another month or so. We're going to be paying over $5 a gallon for gas, and that's just. 20 years ago, if you'd asked me that, I'd have laughed in your face, but it's become a reality. And our sport, it's definitely, I don't know, I say it's hindering our sport, but I think there was just as many people on Pickwick Lake over Memorial Day and this past weekend as I've ever seen in my entire life, so maybe it's not hindering
people.
There
was at Douglas, too. But to your point about Brandon, great guy. I spent a little time with him at the Open at Toho that he won. We were bobbing around out there before takeoff one of the mornings, and, we could do... You could do 10 shows about making good decisions and fishing good, and you're in a upswing like that too. You've been fishing good for a couple of years now, but Brandon's made really good decisions this year. He won that Open. He's already punched his ticket to the Classic, and when you're fishing good, it's just like you make decisions just come really easy, mm-hmm. and it really, it's I always say just keep rolling hot dice, but you're making good decisions, and it's like they just come so much easy when you're fishing good too. It's confidence and making decisions and a whole lot to that.
Very true. The momentum in our sport is probably one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. We talked about that multiple times on this show in the past, but you know, Brandon coming off the open win, like you just mentioned, he's fishing really, really well this year. And, you know, we're, him and I are both inside the top 10 in the Angler of the Year standings right now. And, you know, in a perfect world, I'd love to battle it out with somebody like Brandon Lester, but there's a guy named Brandon Polinick that's kind of put a kink in everybody's plans lately. And for Polinick, talking about momentum, he is riding a momentum train this year that is it's pretty unbelievable. I mean, I don't know exactly all his finishes. I don't know if he's missed a top 10, but let me just put it to you in these terms. I'm in 7th in the Angler of the Year standings. Don't know exactly what my point total is without looking. But Brandon is in 1st. That's only 6 places difference, right? Mm-hmm. He is an entire tournament in reference to points ahead of me. Mm-hmm. Meaning if he's zeroed at the next tournament and I won it, well, I think he has to catch a bass to get a point, and I won it, he would still win the AO Angler of the Year title. That's how far ahead he is of me. Now, there is one person that's within a reasonable reach, and that's John Cox. But we are headed north. Nothing against John. John catches them everywhere he goes. But Brandon has a really good track record up north. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do all I can to try to make a run at it. But there again, if I finish top 5 the last 3 events, Polinick still has to screw up. And the way he's fishing lately, back to your statement about momentum, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I'm being a realist. I don't see it happen. I've got to go out and do my job, not worry about everybody else. But Brandon is fishing out of his mind lately. Yeah. And but again, congrats to Lester. Very deserving individual. And yeah, that's right. Ryan Sowers, that's true. He said Polinick's having a baby, so he's going to have that new baby luck on his side. And if you don't think that's a real thing, join the professional tour and have a baby and watch what happens to your next 3 or 4 tournaments, because I've seen more tournaments won after somebody just had a baby. I don't know what it is. It's the baby magic, baby luck, whatever you want to call it. But I've seen really strong finishes, really good momentum trains start rocking, and a lot of tournaments won right after somebody has a baby. I don't know, something special there for sure. He said, Ryan also said that gas in Michigan is $6.39 a gallon right now.
Wow.
Oh, that's 90. So that's I guess that's a mid. Wait, what's REC 90? Is that like a mid grade?
I think
87, 89, and 93 is all I know.
Yeah, that's like the plus, I guess.
So it's like an 89 here. So 90 is $6.39. So the regular's got to be $6 a gallon. Something to look forward to, Todd.
I paid $6 a gallon for diesel to come over here today. So I never thought I would ever see that.
That means diesel's probably $7.58.
Probably
up
so.
There. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. It's gonna cost us $600-700 to fill up our truck and boats.
Yeah.
I can't. That's hard to fathom. Well, let's jump into a couple things. Again, big shout out to Angler's Choice. I know they're selling a lot of boats lately. They're still getting some new boats in. 3 locations, guys, gals. Don't forget Lexington, North Carolina, Spindale, North Carolina, and Martinsville, Virginia. So be sure to check them out. That's Brian and I's Ranger dealer. Has been for years and years and years. Great people, take care of you before and after the service. And swing in one of those locations, because not only do they have a great boat selection and great people that run these places, but every store has been slowly expanding their tackle selection and their tackle stores, and the Martinsville, Virginia is unreal. Their tackle selection there is unreal. They got a lot of really hard to find stuff. They happen to have some pulse fish lures there, in case anybody's in the market for a few extra spinning PJs or some pulse jigs. But they have some really hard to find Japanese swim baits. They have some glide baits. They have some really, really cool stuff. So swing in those locations, if not to buy a new boat, buy some tackle, because they got some really, really cool tackle. They got some hard to find stuff, like I said. They stay on top of it too. They get some really hard to find colors. Mm-hmm. They'll carry some mega bass jerk baits and stuff that you just can't buy in the U.S. typically. You know,
they have a lot of those.
They do. So real quick, I'll talk about Pickwick in a minute. Since I've been yakking so much, I'm going to let Todd take the mic. Tell the viewers that Todd fishes the MPFL. Y'all have had 3 events?
Yeah, this was our 3rd stop at Watts Bar.
This is the 3rd stop at Watts Bar. He's coming off of a top 10 finish at Watts Bar, And I'm gonna let Todd talk a little bit about the NPFL to the viewers that aren't familiar with the NPFL, and then roll into the Watts Bar tournament and tell them kind of what went down, because anybody that's watching, by the way, Thrift's not here tonight, but anybody that's watching Thrift is fishing the thanks, Jeff. It's anybody that's fishing the BPT or watching the BPT tour. They are actually at Watts Bar, where Todd just came from. So any questions about Watts Bar, shoot them in. I'll read them off to Todd, and he would be the man. He's got a lot of experience there, too. He's an East Tennessee guy, so he grew up fishing Watts Bar also. Shoot them in to me, and I'll shoot them over to Todd. But go ahead and take off.
All right. Yeah, the NPFL, like Matt said, this was our third stop, and I really can't say enough about the organization. Everything's so well ran. It's like a big family there. The ownership group really goes above and beyond to make sure that the experience, for us as the angler, that we basically, the tournament director told us for the last event, because the ramp where we went out of and where the BPT's at, it's a little challenging right now. There's still, that ramp's in construction and all the facilities are going to put there. So, they basically told us, you just worry about catching the fish and we'll worry about the logistics. But really great organization. The feed, with the live stream with Luke Duncan and Fat Cat Newton. I mean, it's very well done. The production crew, they've done a great job with getting content out there. And, I got to give a shout out to Bradley Hallman too. He filled in for Watson at this last event because Watson couldn't even be on the water because he's fishing the BPT. So he couldn't even go do the on the water coverage. So Hallman filled in for him and did a phenomenal job. Just can't say enough about that. And I'm just really excited about, the NPFL and there's room for another organization out there like that, and my Watts Bar event, I mean, I had a lot figured out, and I just didn't adjust the first day. I had a tongue hooked fish, the first fish I caught the first morning that, was challenged me, and I ended up turning it loose just because I didn't want to incur a penalty, and then I lost a smallmouth between 4 and 5 the first day. But given that first day, I still learned, and I adjusted on the fly. And one thing that I found in practice is that a lot of the fish were on docks, and they were on 12 to 14 foot docks on the end of the dock. And the fish were guarding fry, and I was catching them on a little 1/8 ounce pulse jig and a Ned rig, that Zoom beat down, and I was catching some on a Fitzgerald micro jig. But as the week progressed,
you just answered Ryan Sauer's question. I hope you got that, Ryan, because his question was actually, what lures did Todd catch his fish on? So you knocked one out without knowing it.
Awesome.
Roll on.
And as the week went on, and I had graphed so many docks, and like Matt said, I've got a little bit of history there, and I know the right docks to fish that's got the rock piles under them. And but as the week went on, the fish wanted to be on docks that had 20 foot of water on the front of them. But the fish were still in 12 to 14 foot. So that's where the beat down, the Zoom beat down, the Ned rig came into play, because I was skipping that thing way back underneath these places. And, I adjusted on the fly the second day. I started in a different area the second day, and it goes to making the good decisions and momentum like we talked about. I realized the second day my best area that I thought was my best area was really not a first thing in the morning place. It was like a 9 to 11 o'clock place. So I made the right decisions throughout the week, and I was really proud to be able to rally back and catch almost 19 pounds the last day and finish 10th. So it was a really good day. Everything made really good decisions, and that last day, I had a trifecta at Watts Bar. I had a 4-pound spot, I had a 5.5 pound largemouth, and then at the end of the day, I had about 16 pounds. And I had to be in at 4:15, but at 2:30, I pulled back up on my best dock that's got a rock pile under it, and I made 6 casts in a row with that beat down, and I caught 6 fish in a row. The 7th cast was a 4-pound smallmouth that gave me almost 19 pounds for that last day. So, just
everything's going right.
Everything's going right. Yeah, you just can't screw it up.
And that you tell the viewers, did you see a lot of those fish on your active target under those docks, so you knew. The one thing about dock fishing and forward-facing sonar now is you kind of know when you're not wasting. You're being more efficient. You're not wasting time because you can actually see those fish under those docks, especially when they're suspended. Sometimes they'll get tight at the bottom or a dock pole where they're hard to see until they move, but you knew the fish were there. You could see them.
100%. And at the weigh-in the last day, I talked about Active Target and how it really helped me. And another change that I made about midway through the second day is I was throwing it on 10-pound braid and 8-pound fluorocarbon, Seaguar fluorocarbon leader with that Ned rig, and it was going by them too fast. And you could see them on the Active Target. They'd kind of get interested and they'd go down maybe a foot or so, and then they'd just kind of chill out and they wouldn't commit. So I switched to 12-pound, and the bait sunk a little bit slower. And from that point on, when you'd skip it underneath there and you'd see the fish, they would just run it down because it was falling at a rate that they wanted. Sometimes you want it to go 100 mile an hour past them to get that reaction bite, but this particular situation, they wanted it slower and they ran it down.
And that, folks, is exactly why Lowrance Active Target has changed the game, because anytime in the past, number one, you didn't know if there was a fish under there. Number two, you didn't know if he was suspended or on the bottom. Number three, you didn't know how he reacted to your bait when you presented it like that. One thing Todd just mentioned is about rate of fall and how we've talked about that a little bit on the show before, but the rate of fall on suspended bass, whether they're under a dock, out in a channel, wherever they are, rate of fall on a bait is very, very, very critical. And the minor change that Todd made all the difference in the world in being able to make those fish chase it all the way to the bottom as opposed to stopping midway down. And that's something I've seen, fishing for them out deep too. They get 10, 12, 15 feet off the bottom. If they're 3 or 4 foot off the bottom, that's a whole different ballgame. But if they're 10, 12, 15 feet off the bottom, sometimes I've seen them chase something down and just rise back up real quick. They'll never even make it at the bottom. And when that happens, that's when you need to know you need to change your rate of fall. And that's a great adjustment that you made. A couple questions real quick. You answered Ryan's about what lures did you catch your fish on.
I see Mike's question.
But back to what you said. Those are the goods that you get on Let's Talk Fish. You don't get those on every podcast. Some guys wouldn't even tell that on every podcast. But watching those fish on forward-facing sonar and how they react to how fast your bait is actually falling past them is a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
That was the difference in you catching 18 pounds and maybe 7. Because those fish, if you would have kept skipping that same size line, same size head under there, and they never made it to the bottom with the bait, then you don't catch any of them.
Yeah, don't catch any of them.
You don't catch any of them. This is a good question because I've been following along a little bit. I don't know the answer to your question, Keith Wood. He said, I can't remember what his name was, but why was the guy moving debris with his hole during the BPT? I did not see that.
I didn't see that.
So I'm not familiar with exactly what happened or, what went down. But a good question for Mike. He said, do you think Watts Bar's in a downturn? Because one thing I've noticed, it's postponed, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But a lot of the fish that they're catching, a lot of the fish y'all caught, at this point, though, we're talking June. A lot of the fish that the guys at BBT were catching do not look great to me. They look long, skinny. They look almost more like an immediate postpone as opposed to a really healthy, fat, marked up. One thing about the fish in Pickwick that we were catching, a lot of those fish were fully recovered. They're very healthy, very fat, big guts on them. They've got those beautiful black markings on them, and people always say that's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. They say that's a sign of a healthy lake. But I can tell you Pickwick is very healthy. It does have quite an influx of Asian carp coming down the system now, which is a little scary. But overall, the lake seems very healthy. And we'll talk more about Pickwick in a minute. But do you think Watts Bar is in a downturn?
I don't think so.
Okay, because in his question referred to the BPT guys don't seem to be catching them very well either. This guy Mike, he fishes Watts Bar and Chick quite a bit. He said that ramp sucks. It's way too shallow, by the way. I don't exactly know what he's talking about there. But
I can answer all that.
all right, go ahead.
So what you didn't see in the NPFL, and I haven't watched a whole lot of the BPT footage, but we had a colder, and living up there in East Tennessee, we had a really cold winter this year, and winter did not want to give up until, really late. We still had nights in the 30s in early May, in late April. And those fish, I think, from what I saw, like yesterday, I caught a ton of fish every day in the tournament. and my first day I only weighed in 3 fish, but I probably caught 40 fish, and they were all between 14 and 14 3/4 inches long, and they got to be 15 inches, to keep. But they were healthy. But I think we caught it right at the end of the spawn where they get in that funk. There's a week or so funk or two where they don't bite really good. They're healing up. They're trying to get out there offshore. And Watts Bar is not, to me, is not a real good offshore lake. There are some great looking places offshore that you think you're going to just catch them on, but usually white bass and stripers live there and they run them off, and you end up catching white bass or stripers. But there's so many fish in that year class that's between 14 and 14 3/4 inches that I caught that looked good. I don't think the lake's in a downturn.
It's just in an age class rotation.
It's in an age class rotation. And yes, Mike, the ramp does suck, but they've got Tennessee. The state of Tennessee has got the funding. When the lake goes down in the fall, they're gonna dredge that out, from what I was told, and they're gonna complete that ramp. They didn't have time to do it with the funding that they got and the timing to do all of that. So, but from what I hear, they're gonna make that into a really good place.
Yeah, and me as an outsider looking in, I look at Watts Bar and I see the video footage from you guys when you fishing there, and from some of the BPT guys. That lake, to me, has a lot of shallow water opportunity.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's docks, laydowns, grass, it's got current, but it's had tons of seawalls. I mean, it sets up to be a really, really good shallow water lake, even all the way through the summer.
It's an all-year shallow water lake. And yesterday I was watching the coverage, and Dakota A-Bear caught him in a place that I had a super high finish back in the late 90s in the Tennessee State Federation.
Now you're telling your age.
Yep. But hey, it's only a number, man.
That's right. That's right.
I think I finished in the top 10 out of like 600 that year in the state. That was before they combined the state into East and West. But in the back of Caney Creek, Dakota A-Bear caught him out of that culvert. And I practiced that because there's current back there during the week. If they pull water, you can catch them real good there. And they weren't there when I practiced. And I even went through the culvert. And yesterday, and KVD caught one pretty much off the same piece of cover through that culvert and to the right on a log that I missed one on in practice. But since it was only one fish, I wasn't going to make all that trek to get back there. But
they had a lot of rain.
They had a ton of rain. The lake come up a foot or two since we were there. A lot of moving water.
So that current flow that you're talking about, that's so critical for a pinch point like that, probably changed everything for some of those guys. And Dakota was able to capitalize on it, looked like. All right, so that's pretty much. Dean said that is the juice right there. Talking about your comment earlier, that's what we do. We give the juice away. I'm telling you, we give the juice away. But we'll talk about Pickwick a little bit. Pickwick is it's a great lake. One thing I noticed this year, these lakes change year to year, and Pickwick was one thing. We fished it last year during the extreme high water conditions when they had the flooding and canceled a couple of days. Went back out there, and the guys ended up crushing them. There was a ton of current, a ton of grass, but the guys ended up absolutely cracking them. Well, came back this year, and the grass is pretty much gone. And, I guess the answer for that is when you get those flood conditions and things like that, it ends up killing and taking away a lot of the grass. So it ended up being pretty much a ledge fest. Minus your John Cox, but John Cox doesn't count. He's not in this conversation. John Cox is John Cox. He ran over to what's the lake that you can run to?
It starts with a D.
B, I think. Somebody help me out here. My mind just went blank.
Brock Mosley went over there too.
Yeah, it's Bay Springs.
Bay Springs.
Yes. Cox was, as far as I know, the only one that made that really work well. He went over to Bay Springs, cracked the top 10. He did what he does. He went over there and found some shallow fish, improved on the bite each day, and ended up cracking them pretty good. So he actually gained some ground on Polinick in the AOY by they both top 10, so he didn't gain much, but he gained a couple points, which a couple points could be pretty critical at the end of the season.
John Williams said, "Nice to meet you at Pickwick."
John, it was my pleasure, man. I tell you what, when we pulled in to weigh in each day, especially that Saturday on day 3, the fans were outstanding. I mean, they were lined up down the bank, and everybody was so nice. Anywhere in the South. I mean, in the North too. I mean, we go to a lot of really cool places, a lot of cool fans, a lot of cool people we get to meet, and it truly was a pleasure meeting and getting to talk fishing with some of you folks down there at Lake Pickwick. That was a great venue. The state park. I've never gone out of the state park before. I've always gone out of Florence, but the state park down there in Counce, Tennessee, is a really, really nice venue for a big event like an elite tournament or an NPFL, which y'all might.
We'll probably
venture
go to
out
a
there.
Tennessee Lake next year too.
So y'all
'cause
might venture over there.
They have a good relationship with the folks there in Tennessee. So, and talk about John Cox a little bit. I think he probably, used to give Thrift a lot of grief about running a Fortrex trolling motor. I think John Cox is probably the only one left out there that has a Fortrex on the front of his boat.
Are you sure he has a Fortrex right now?
I did, because I saw it the other day, and I'm like, well,
Okay, because I'm going to verify that at the next
Yeah.
event because I can't verify that
Yep.
without looking. But
Yep.
that's funny because now I'm going to be looking next time I see his boat.
Because we used to
I,
give Thrift a lot of grief about always running a Fortrex and not switching to the Ultrex.
That's right. That's right. Thrift has finally switched, and I notice every tournament I see him fishing offshore now, he's using that spot lock feature.
Exactly.
So I know he's thankful to have it. But John, if I'm not mistaken, I'm terrible with names, John. Forgive me if I screw this up, but I believe John was the kind of the land manager there at the J.P. Coleman State Park resort area, which I launched at one day for practice and got to meet John. He said he was a fan of the show and gets to watch the show. Doesn't get to watch it live a lot, if I'm not mistaken. So good to see you on here, John. But hello again, and thanks a lot for coming up and saying, hey, I tell everybody, I said, look, the worst thing you can do is just stand there and not come up and say something. If you see us somewhere and you want to come up and say, hey, please come up and speak. But again, everybody was great. It was great to see everybody at Pickwick, and we've got several weeks off. Then we're headed up north to chase some big brown fish. But real quick, I'll give a Pickwick rundown, and I'm going to give a few ledge fishing tips in the midst of this Pickwick rundown. I ended up finishing 13th. I think my total for 3 days was 50 pounds and some change. We missed the top 10 by just under, no, it was a little over 2 pounds, and ledge fishing today is not like it was 10 or 15 years ago, and that's strictly because of the electronics capabilities. Guys are finding everything with the side imaging we have now, the forward-facing sonar. They're able to really zero in on the fish. So basically the fish are getting a lot more pressure overall. Lester ended up winning the tournament, but he knows the lake very well. But Lester was smart enough to milk and find some schools that were not beat to death by guides, locals, other pros. He was able to pull up to those schools and always capitalize on them because he found some off the wall type places, which is really, really hard to do in this day and age with the electronics that we have.
For sure.
Now, that being said, my process going into this event was ideally, in a perfect situation, I want to find schools that I can monitor visually while I fish them. And the reason I do that is because pressure on these schools and timing on these schools is extremely critical when you're fishing for ledge fish. There are bite windows, there's current changes, there's pressure changes, there's all kinds of little variables that go into fishing for ledge fish nowadays. I was fortunate enough to find 4 or 5 schools, and the way our gas prices are now, I was very fortunate because I found 4 or 5 schools of fish that were actually all within 4 or 5 miles of the ramp.
Oh, wow.
I did not burn a full tank of gas during the entire 3 days that I fished the tournament. So I'm very proud to say that because it did not cost me as much as it did a John Cox or somebody that ran 60 miles down Pickwick toward Florence. But what I was able to do, I was able to start on a certain school, whichever one I decided to start on. And, ledge fishing etiquette and fishing beside guys, you probably saw a lot of that happen. And that's a conversation for a whole nother show because we can talk about etiquette on the water. We've done that before. But I did share some fish with several different pros. Brandon Cobb, buddy of mine, Shane LaHue. They were great to work with. The guys, we know each other. Mike Huff was out there sharing some water with us. Great guys, very easy to get along with. Most of the guys are. And the only tip I'll give you if you pull up on somebody fishing a big offshore school like that, we've said it before on the show, I'll say it again, is communication. Don't just pull up and be that guy, okay? Pull up and say, Todd, do you mind if I fish here with you? I'll fish around you, behind you, whatever is comfortable for you. If it's a big mega school of fish, you'll both be able to do it efficiently. But if it's a one cast deal, don't pull in there and try to screw the guy over. Just go somewhere else, wait your turn. But the biggest thing for that, especially like what I just said, was I was able to actually monitor other schools of fish while I was fishing for one specific school. I could see how many boats were fishing it. I could see how long they were fishing it, and I could even see some of the techniques they were using. So that always that goes in the back of my mind, and I kind of put it in a melting pot, and then I decipher what I need to do, when I need to move, and how I need to approach a new school of fish. And I say a new school, not a new school, a beat up school of fish. But if it rests for 30, 45 minutes, and I could slide over there and fish it, I felt like it was fresh to an extent. I felt like it was fresh. As far as the way I had to catch them, I weighed in 3, maybe 2 out of the 15 fish I weighed in on a big plug, big deep diving crankbait, and the rest of them I actually weighed in on finesse presentations, super light line, super small baits, wacky rig, nail weights, Nikos, things like that. Excuse me, that's what I had to fall back on to get a lot of those fish to bite. There were little bite windows. It didn't seem to be as current related because we didn't have a ton of current throughout the event. But there were little bite windows. I told Todd before the show, the last day of the tournament, I actually caught 2 or 3 before like 8:30 in the morning, blasted off at 7. And then I didn't get a bite for like 4 hours. Wow. But because of my active target and because of our electronics, I knew my bait was still in front of these bass. They would still follow it. They would still do certain things, get around it. They would scare you to death, thinking you'd think they would bite it, but they just wouldn't commit to it. I actually bailed and went shallow for a little bit, came back out, still couldn't get them to bite. And then after 2 o'clock that day, I was doing it at 3 o'clock, and from 2 to 2:45, I caught 3 or 4 more. And wow. It wasn't like, you see it on paper, you see 16, 18, 19, 20 pounds, whatever it is, and you're like, God, those guys smashed them. For 90% of the field, it wasn't like that.
Caught 7 fish all day.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9. You can see on Bass Track. They don't log all the catches on Bass Track because if it doesn't help, they typically won't log it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the guys were catching 6, 7, 8 fish. that's what they were catching. Yeah. And
talk about giving the juice on this show.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring something up that I know you're going to agree with. And I did it, and I've done it for years. I started noticing it at Lanier. Even before all the forward-facing sonar, but every place that I stopped at Watts Bar and really any lake in general, I know the fish feel the transducer pings. And
100%.
When you add that forward-facing sonar to it, it's another ping. And like you said, if you have guys coming in, you guys are sharing a ledge or this or that. Every time I stop to fish a place, the only thing that is pinging is that active target because I turn my 2D off. And with the Lowrance, you can put it in standby, but you have to actually go in and stop sonar, depending on what graph you have, whether it's Humminbird, Garmin, or whatever. But with Lowrance, you have to go in and stop the sonar. And I stop sonar on every one of my units except that active target when I'm fishing a place. And lakes nowadays get so much pressure, so I know they feel that pinging, and I used to see it at Lanier. That's when I really first started noticing it.
It's funny because Mike Anders asked me, said, Matt, did you community hole it or did you find a place, all to yourself? ZP, I'll answer your question in a second. I don't really know. I know one school that was a main river school was probably somewhat a community school, but I only shared it with like 2 or 3 other pros, tops. I had an inside deal that Brandon Cobb actually found, but between him and I think we were the only 2 guys that found that school in our field. If there were other guys, they were respectful of of us. I guess they saw us fishing or whatever. But I found a little inside school that was pretty good, and then I found there was one community hole there close to the ramp that I never really fished because 3 or 4 guys were fishing it. I know Sumrall, I know Morgan Thaler fished it. KJ Queen fished it. A couple guys had some good finishes off of that hole, but there was another hole not far from that was a little bit more unobvious. And other than a guide, I pretty much had that one to myself the whole tournament. Now I caught several key fish off of it the first day, but I wasn't able to capitalize on them on day 2 and day 3. There was a guide out there that was actually very busy on that hole on day 2 and day 3. But I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I just wasn't able to be real efficient on that spot because of that.
So Steve Marchone, I hope I pronounced that right. He said that John Cox switches his trolling motors depending on what body of water. So.
Interesting. So I thought I've seen a spotlight trolling motor, but I'm gonna when we go up north. I don't know if St. Lawrence he'll switch them out, but I'm going to investigate that a little bit, Steve, and see what I see. See what I can see on his boat next tournament. What IPA am I drinking? ZP wanted to know. Let's just look here and see. He knows me well. that I'm drinking an IPA. This is actually a Voodoo Ranger experimental is what that is. So pretty good little
There you go.
liquid pleasure we got there. But
Mike Anders just said that Lester had a great hole and must have known about it for years. And I believe the second day of the tournament, he said, I'm going to burn this place down because there's a night tournament going out tonight, and I know they're going to hit it. And Saturday morning, there was another club tournament or whatever. So one of his better areas, he said he was just going to burn it down. And
you know, and well, it's funny because we'll talk about, you know, understanding what you find, because the biggest thing in a ledge tournament is we don't sit there and try to pound on them in practice. You know, our electronics tell us enough to know that those are bass and how many are there, and even sometimes to an extent what size they are. You get a bite or two, that's enough for me, you know. I don't even stick them in practice. So even on a ledge, people are like, don't you need to know what size they are? No, I'd just rather find out during the Derby because that's the only time it's worth anything.
you don't want to win. Winning practice doesn't pay anything, does
Exactly. It took me quite a few years to learn that, but I finally said to heck with it. I don't care if I catch one or not. But I caught 3, 4, 5 bass each day of practice at Pickwick, you know, and if that, the last day I think I caught 3 maybe, and shook off a few. But that understanding what you find, meaning you've got these schools of fish found. You got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is a good example. Jacob Fouts, okay? He's a rookie on the elites this year. Don't know Jacob very well. Seems like a pretty good kid. Came out of the college ranks, qualified for the opens. Obviously a good stick, right? Finishes second or third at Pickwick. I think he finished second, if I'm not mistaken. I think he finished second. And impressive performance. But where he caught all his fish was a school at the mouth of Bear Creek, close to the mouth anyway. And it was a school that Canterbury had found. Well, Canterbury pulled up and he cracked a couple off of it in practice. I think he caught a couple 2.5 pounders. And he actually caught a 4 pounder there, if I'm not mistaken. And Canterbury had told Hollywood and I about the school he found there, and he had other stuff too. You know, he'd found some other schools. And it came down to where he wanted to start. Well, he didn't start there. He started some other places. He ended up running down there the first day, and Fouts was sitting there, and Fouts had wrecked him. First thing that morning, he'd wrecked him.
Saturday morning?
First day of the
First
tournament.
day.
And Canterbury pulled in there, and he talked to him, said, "Can I fish around?" And yada yada yada, and he could. But it was a pretty precise little deal the way it's set up. It just wasn't one of those mega schools that was spread out 100 yards where you could catch them, 3 different places. But he caught them really really good. And hindsight's always 20/20 on ledge fishing, but Canterbury made the best decision based on his practice on what school to try to start on. Mm-hmm. Had he started on that school, he probably would have caught them pretty good. I don't even know what boat number he was compared to Fouts, but I know first day Canterbury was a pretty early number. It was like 20-something. So he kind of had the pick of the litter. But point being is, we always question how hard do we lean on them in practice? What do we do? How do we figure out where to start? When you have 10 or 12 ledge schools, my theory is I start on the biggest school that I found. Mm-hmm. I start where I can put 5 fish in the box, 5 competitive fish. Obviously, we want giants, but not every school is going to produce 25 pounds. But if I can get check fish in the box, a good solid limit in the box, and I can get on a mega school to where if somebody does pull in on me, I can still work the area the way I want to. That's the way I look at it. Now, if I feel like I've got something way off the beaten path, I may not start on that school just because I'm taking a chance, I'm gambling, but that's something I stick in my back pocket. I want to beat on the schools that I know everybody else has probably found, and I want to beat on the biggest ones on the lake. This school, I don't know how many people have found it, and I don't know how many other people that even tried to get on it, but Fouts got there first. The first day, it's where he spent the whole tournament. It's where he established his position, which is also important in ledge tournaments. Mm-hmm. That goes back to respecting guys and things like that. I'm not a fan of a guy who pulls in on a guy who is leading the tournament after 2 days, especially 2 days, and he rolls up there and says, "Well, I found this spot too. That's great. You can fish it, but you're going to fish back there. You're not going to fish right here beside me." So that just goes back to etiquette on the water.
Well, there was a place in the back of Whites Creek at Watts Bar that, it's a known area. There's a little system back there, and it's one of the first places when they're done spawning. It's one of the last it's an offshore place out there before they, and there's a bluff really close to it, but they set up on this place, and Derek Blake was there 2 days, and I found those fish in practice, but I never went over there because it's, you know, you made I'm an old reference earlier. I'm kind of old school in that regard. You know, if somebody else is on a spot, I'm not going to pull up there. I just, you know, I've got enough confidence in what I'm doing. I'm going to go do something else. And it actually worked to my benefit because when I saw Derek on that place, the closest, deepest water was a little short bluff right beside it that had a dock on it. And it was one of those deeper docks that had 20 foot of water in front of it. And my first skip underneath there, I catch a 3-pounder. So, you know, it goes back to decisions, but it also, you know, I just wasn't going to pull in on Derek because he was fishing, like you said, a one cast deal.
Kind of one cast deal,
and you just don't want to. Personally, I just would never do that to somebody.
You could end up screwing yourself a lot worse by trying to attempt a move like that as opposed to a mega school or something. You're a lot better off just going to do your own thing, going back to plan B, plan C, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, understanding what you found in practice is extremely critical in making those decisions, especially at the start of a tournament, because in a ledge fishing tournament, people can say it comes down to boat draw, but here's the way I look at it. This is just back to kind of etiquette. Swindle and I were actually on the phone the other night talking about this, and I 100% agree with him. Guys, if a guy goes out, Todd Goad goes out on day one, he goes to his best school on Pickwick, and I come there, right? And you've got 25 pounds in the boat. You're leading the tournament after day one. But I was wanting to fish it, but I didn't, for whatever reason. If it was a one cast deal, whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Day two, I'm earlier than you. I go there and I start on it. So what's your take on that? Let me just ask you your take on that first.
Well, I don't know that I would know that you knew I started there for number one. So
okay.
It's kind of a catch-22. You guys need to communicate, like you said earlier.
Yeah, but if I didn't show up, or I just rode by, but you didn't know I rode by, and then I was sitting there on day two. What Gerald's point was, which I like this point. So the field in a tournament like Pickwick, perfect example.
That place fished small for you.
It
guys.
did. It was every ledge tournament. I'm not a fan of ledge tournaments anymore. Not at our level, because our guys find everything in a day.
Yeah.
You give them 2 days of practice, they find beyond everything. There were one or two guys that found a couple off the wall places, but the majority of the field found everything out there.
Well, to answer your question, I'm old school. I wouldn't want you fishing it.
Okay, you wouldn't, right?
No.
Here's Gerald's take on it, and here's kind of my take on it. I hate to bring Swindle into this. I don't even know if he listens to our podcast. He might be like, "What the hell are you talking about me for on there?" But no,
he's cooking steaks with Shad Morgan-Tatum.
Gerald's a realist. Look, that's why I got a lot of respect for Gerald, because he tells you like it is, and that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna tell you like it is. The fact of the matter is, our field is inverted on day 1 and 2. I'm not talking about day 3 and 4. I'm strictly talking about day 1 and 2. Our field is inverted on day 1 and 2. If you just happen to get lucky enough to get boat 20 and I get boat 40 on day 1, I get the pick of the litter on day 2. I don't care what you caught there, because if that's where I plant, now I'm not going to be that guy who just poaches your hole. I'm not a poacher. I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But if I wanted to start there on day 1, and the only reason I couldn't start there on day 1 is because you got an earlier number than me, I'm going there on day 2, whether you caught 5 pounds or 40 pounds. I'm going there. And that's when you got to take, in my opinion, and Gerald, he brought this up, and I 100% agree, that little luck factor of who got the better boat draw on the first day should not have anything to do with the outcome of the tournament. Anything. And lots of guys are saying, well, you need to respect the fact that he's leading, or you need to respect. Look, day 3, that's a little different.
Right.
But days 1 and 2, when there's a full field fishing on days 1 and 2, a full field, and the field is inverted on day 2, and Gerald opened my eyes to some things when he said it that way, and I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense, and that's the way it should be, because I think I'm a little soft sometimes. You know, I think I'm a little bit too laid back sometimes, because I'm like you. I'm kind of old school. I don't like confrontation on the water. Mm-hmm. I ain't got time for it. I'm out there to do a job, find fish, catch fish, make money, right? That's what you're out there for. Yeah. And I don't want to go up and make anybody mad or try to – I hate fishing around people, number one. I don't like fishing around anybody. None of us like fishing around anybody.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it happens in ledge tournaments. And that's back to the reason why I don't like ledge tournaments, because you have to fish in crowds. But he had a good point. You know,
it happened to me at Hartwell. The first day, I had a herring spawn place that, it's probably the best herring spawn place on the lower end of the lake. And I caught pretty much my weight there the first day, 13 something. But there was a couple guys that rode by and saw me there on that place. And, you know, like you said, the field's inverted. So when I go there the next morning, I'm boat 92 or whatever it was, you know. Those two guys are fighting over that place, you know, and I didn't get to
You
fish
mean like
it.
verbally actually fighting, or?
No, I mean their boats were.
Oh, okay.
I mean
Okay.
the boats, they were real close to each other. It was a specific cast on that place, the way it sets up. But I didn't get to fish it again the rest of the week. Actually, there was a boat on it the rest of the week. I got it the first day because I had a good boat draw.
Yeah, that's I mean, and it's part of the game we play, right?
It is. Yeah.
You're the only person that can make those decisions on the water, and you know, this is an interesting question from Jim. He wants to know my thoughts on allowing forward-facing sonar for practice only, but not in the tournament. The only issue, I don't have issues with limiting electronics at all in tournaments, especially professional level events. I kind of like the thought of it, you know, nowadays. But the problem is you've still got all the guides and the locals and things. Like Pickwick is a perfect example. So the forward-facing sonar, the electronics now has made fish, especially ledge fish, a lot harder to catch. It's just a fact. There's just a lot. It's not like it was 15, 20 years ago when you found a school and you could just wreck them every cast. Still happens occasionally, but more often than not, you got to show them a lot of different options, a lot of different offerings in order to trigger them to eat. So I think if you're going to allow it for practice, you still got to allow it for the tournament. You know, I don't. If they want to put restrictions on it, I think it should be eliminated for both. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day too. You know, I don't think if we can't use it for the tournament, we shouldn't be able to use it in practice, regardless of what it is. Whether it's like an Alabama rig. It's illegal in our tournaments. It's also illegal in practice. If forward-facing sonar was illegal in our tournament, then it should be illegal in practice. That's the way I look at it.
And I think the business of fishing the way that it is, and the money that the electronics companies put into sponsoring the major tours out there, I don't think it'll ever be banned in competition just because of the business aspect of it.
100%, yeah. And we've talked about it on the show. I think, you know, Thrift's standpoint on that is he thinks that, you know, what they could do is limit the inches of screens that you can put on your boat and things like that. Which I'm not going to disagree with that. I think that's a good idea. You know, I don't think a guy should have 6, 7, 8 units on his boat. Yeah. I think it gets a little ridiculous at times. And, you know, it has changed fishing. And, you know, the days of, you know, you're starting to see some shallow fishing stuff shine a little bit more than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Those fish aren't pressured as much anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I hope that continues to head that direction, because I don't foresee, like you said, them limiting anything as far as electronics are concerned for now. Will they have to one day? Very possible. It just depends on how. I mean, this stuff just keeps getting crazier and crazier. You know, it's unbelievable what these companies are doing, and hats off to Lowrance for what they've done. It's unreal. I mean, it's truly unreal. What we're looking at on our forward-facing sonar on that Lowrance active target is. You know, I'm not going to say it makes it easy, because you can't catch 75% of the ones you see on it.
Well, they'll drive you crazy watching them follow your stuff.
Yeah,
too, you know,
but it'll give you the confidence to know that there's bass
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and they might be willing to eat something. I'm just going to have to sit here and be patient and change it up.
You got to have a
make
good
them
pair
bite.
of snips in the boat, because you're cutting off and retying other stuff and trying this and
That's
that.
right. I thought that sucker would bite that. Nope, let's try again.
Nope.
Let's try this. Let's go to this. Let's go to a 3-inch. Let's go to a 4-inch. Let's go to a 5-inch. Let's change colors. Go to red bug. Go to green pumpkin. That's what's going through our minds now. We're pulling our hair out trying to make these fish bite that we can actually see on our forward-facing sonar. But
I grew up finesse fishing, and I like the fact. I mean, you caught most of your fish at Pickwick on a finesse technique, and I caught my fish at Watts Bar on a finesse technique. And
yeah, so that tells you right there. You
fishing
know,
pressure and
Yep. People are able to put a bait in front of bass more often now with electronics that we have, and that simply makes them a little bit more. I don't want to say educated, because a fish is a fish. You know, they're not smart. They just, if they see something over and over and over and over again, you know, they do become a little apt to want to see something a little different. And you got to think outside the box when it comes to tackle selections, line sizes. You know, we talked about that a little bit in the way we caught our fish at these last couple events, and 10, 15 years ago, I would not have dropped down to 6-pound leader and little bitty tiny worms and nail weights and things like that to catch the fish at Pickwick. I'd have been able to throw a big plug, yank a giant spoon, stroke a jig. And don't get me wrong, there was some fish caught like that. But overall, there was a lot more fish caught finesse fishing at those tournaments. Trivia question. We're getting close. Keith,
I got something.
hold your horses. We got about 7 or 8 minutes, and we'll throw the trivia question out there. By the way, what's that package worth?
I got it. Oh, it's over $100.
Well over $100
Yep.
giveaway from Pulse Fish.
So I had a couple things I wanted to share with you too. We've introduced our new Night Vibes line of spinner baits. We've got them in 4 colors. I had a buddy over win a tournament at Douglas last Wednesday night, one of the Wednesday nighters on it. It's got a number 6 Colorado blade on it. It's got it in 4 colors. Those things, they thump really good, catch a lot of fish. But, this was our Pulse Fish Lures. This was our first year. Jeremy and I were at the Bassmaster Classic. And one of the things we wanted to do kind of in remembrance of that first classic is I brought the
booth sign.
The booth sign that they made for us, and Jeremy's already signed it. If you're watching, Jeremy, awesome signature. But I wanted to
Look like a
sign
doctor,
it.
or can you actually read it?
I can read it, yeah. But I wanted to sign it, and since you and Brian New are both members of Team Pulse Fish, and you guys have been tremendous helping us grow our brand, and I thought it would be really cool if you guys autographed this too, being our first classic.
That is cool.
I'm going to sign it, and then I'm going to pass it to you and let you sign it.
Throw my John Hancock
Throw
up
your
on
John
there.
Hancock on there.
A push-button Sharpie. You don't see those very often, do you?
Pretty slick. I come prepared, bud.
All right. And you're 100% sure you want New to sign that?
Well, what is that you say when you don't want to say anything bad about it? You just say new is new. You say
that's
new.
what Mama always said. New, I don't see New on here. I know you talked to him before the show, but he's not watching.
New is new.
Yeah. For those that couldn't hear, Mr. Jeff, our producer and the man behind the scenes, said that New is pretty cool about 16 minutes a year.
Yeah.
And that was in reference to Swindle's comment when New was talking about Murray being a better lake than Lake Fork.
Yeah.
Not to throw you under the bus, New. You've had enough heat for that. But Swindle said, yeah, Murray's good about 16 minutes out of the year. Isn't that what he said? Santee. No, Santee. He was talking about Santee. That's right. Santee's good for about 6. And I'll actually vouch for that. I mean, Santee's good for a little bit longer than 16 minutes.
Yeah.
But it has a small window of like unbelievable fishing. And then the rest of the year pretty much sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck. The big fish are still there. It's just tough. It's just tough. It's hard to get them to bite, hard to catch them.
Yeah.
But Santee can be one of the best lakes in the country for a couple months out of the year in the spring, and it is a phenomenal fishery. And the size of the fish, and that lake's always had big, healthy, pretty fish in it.
It's not a numbers lake. It's a big fish.
That's right. Yeah, you don't go down there and catch 100, but you catch 15, you're going to have 20 pounds, you know.
Keith Wood had a good question about the spinnerbait with the big blades. Do you normally slow down your retrieve? You can slow roll it on the bottom. I usually throw this on 15 at night, and I will slow roll it on the bottom. But when you pull it over cover, one cool thing I'd like to do with a nighttime spinnerbait is just kind of pop it and flare it off of the cover. You catch a lot of fish when you do that. When you feel that, reeling it up on a rock pile or a lay down or something, you just kind of flare it and let it get that little bit of extra kick when it flares. But the other surprise I was going to tell you about is
I don't think I know about this one.
we're going to do a buy one get one for
A
BOGO on your spinning PJ.
All right.
So we've already created the code. You guys on the show tonight or watching
So
it
it's live
later.
now.
It's live now. If you use the code PJ BOGO in all caps, any one bait you buy, you
PJ?
get one free.
Just the 2 letters PJ.
PJ.
BOGO.
Yep.
PJ BOGO.
PJ BOGO. Buy one, get one free on the website. While they last, they're going to go fast doing that. So
Yeah, and we'll tease a little bit. We're gonna say a little something here. I'll say a little something. Todd might kick me under the table, but we actually have made some more improvements. Not that it could get much better, but we've already got the best hook, the best components, the best blade, best head design. We've actually made a few little tweaks to that sucker, and we're gonna we're going to even come out with an even better spinning PJ here. How soon?
Hope to have it ready by September 1st.
Hope to have it ready by Labor Day.
Yep.
So what we have left in inventory of the original spinning PJs is a BOGO deal. So buy one, get one free, and we don't know how long that deal is going to run. We don't even know how long they're going to last, but
Yep.
go to pulsefishlures.com, put in the PJ BOGO, PJBOGO,
Yeah.
and buy one, get one free on the spinning PJs. That's pretty awesome.
Ryan Sowers has a point, though. He said if they've got your face on them, they might be hard to give away if they do. So.
Well, you only have to buy one, and we'll give you one. So, well, I mean, we can black my face out if that helps you, Ryan. I mean, you tell us how many you want to buy. We can take the insert cards out of them or whatever you need us to do. We got you. But thanks for the kind words. No, I'm just playing.
Mike, if you go on the website, you can see it under it. So if you click on products and it says Matt Arey Signature Underspin, you'll see the different colors and sizes that we have on there.
Yep, and that's pulsefishlures.com, Mike. So you can check it out on the website. About time for a trivia question. John Williams did ask, which end of the lake do you like going out of best? Talking about Pickwick. You know, I like Florence, but I really, really enjoyed the state park down there in Counts. Enjoyed the area. It was where we stayed, which was in the back. It was a rental house in the back of.
You were in Mississippi, weren't you?
Yeah, we were actually. This was funny. We were in Iuka, Mississippi, is the address of where we stayed. It was a house in the back of. I can't remember the name of the creek there. John knows the name of the creek. You can drop it down there in the comments for me, John, because I forgot the name of the creek. But it's a really underdeveloped area, which I like. You know, a lot of woods. You get down in Counts, just a nice area. The people are great. The facilities were phenomenal. I'm gonna have to give a leg up to Counts, Tennessee. That's the first time I've ever been out of there. I like Florence, but I enjoyed Counts. I really did. And if we go back, I wouldn't mind going out of there again. So I'm gonna have to vote for Counts.
Nice.
Between Counts and Florence. Yeah, have you been out of Counts before?
They went last year. I wasn't fishing the NPFL last year, but they went out of Counts.
But they went out of
last year.
Counts? Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. They're doing,
Indian Creek. Thank you, John. Indian Creek's where we stayed, the back of Indian Creek.
the state of Tennessee is doing a lot to promote the fishing, you know, and they're doing
Yeah.
those little lakes too that Bill Dance is a part of as well, you know. And
He was actually at the expo one day, so that must have been part of that.
They're doing a lot, and they're really trying to grow kind of Fish Spring City too, to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of Chickamauga. To your point, you know, Watts Bar is a really good lake. So is Nickajack below it.
Yeah.
So, and the state's doing a lot to promote the sport of fishing and bring in tournaments, you know, to their state, because they realize, you know, Dennis Tumlin gets it, and the amount of revenue that, you know, an event brings to a city and the economic impact that it has.
You're talking hundreds of
So,
thousands of dollars for some
yeah,
of them.
for sure. So, you know, we're happy to. I know the NPFL. I know they said they'd like to go somewhere in Tennessee about every year.
Yeah, that's Tennessee's got a lot of great fisheries to choose from, and great state, and it's good to see them showing support for the tournament circuits. Real quick, I want to tell a little quick story. I about forgot. Tyler's sitting over there running the cameras for us tonight, but my buddy Buddy and Tyler, my buddy. His name's Buddy, by the way. Everybody heard me talk about Buddy probably. But Buddy and Tyler fished the Angler's Choice Team Tournament Trail this past weekend on High Rock. And they run a great team tournament trail. If you need, check out Angler's Choice Marine online. Go to the tournament trail info. They run a North Carolina trail. They run a Virginia trail too, right, Tyler? So they got a great tournament trail system. They give a lot of contingency money out to Angler's Choice customers. Actually, I think they pay the top 3 finishers that are, you don't have to win the tournament, that are eligible for the Angler's Choice money. They pay the top 3. So 3rd, 7th, 15th could win extra bonus money. But another cool thing they do, and I got to give a shout out to one of my sponsors, AFCO, that helps out, and one of Todd's sponsors too. AFCO helps out with this. They offer 2 $500 gift cards for the smallest limit weighed in. Now, it has to be a legal limit, but 2 $500 gift cards. Well, what Tyler and Buddy decided to do on day one, they had a small bag of fish, and they didn't think about trying to catch the smallest limit until it hit him after the weigh-in, and a buddy of ours, Shane Lineberger, who's actually an ex-elite, ended up winning the first day. Second day they go out and they have about 12 pounds in the box, and it's getting close to the end of the day. And they have 2 3-pounders. Well, they got 30 minutes left to fish, and they catch one about 14 inches, like a line burner keeper, a little bitty keeper. They actually decide, maybe we should call out a 3-pounder. They call it out a 3-pounder. They called down, okay? Called down. You don't hear that very often, ever, in a 5 bass tournament. They called down. They catch another 14-inch keeper, and they called down again. They got rid of their 3-pounder. They weighed in a whopping, 5 for what?
It's like
9?
it was like 846.
5 for 840 something. And anybody that knows High Rock Lake knows that's a very, very small limit for High Rock Lake. Ended up winning 2 $500 gift cards from AFCO for weighing in the smallest limit of the whole tournament. So that's a pretty cool thing that Angler's Choice does, and
That's
AFCO
awesome.
offers through the Angler's Choice Marine Team
Kudos
Tournament
to
Trails.
Tyler too, because if you're not going to win the tournament, you might as well just throw 3-pounders back. And,
Well,
and fish for the AFCO gift card.
Like Tyler and Buddy said, that paid about as much retail wise as like 3rd or 4th place in the tournament.
Yeah.
So that was a good move. That's pretty
cool.
intelligent. Pretty intelligent.
Yeah,
Like they were playing chess and the other ones were playing checkers, I think. So they were. That was a smart move.
I see Adam Savage commented on there. Thanks again. Appreciate that. And I remember talking to you, bobbing around out there before taking off one day. But yeah, it's a great group of guys that we fish with. Just like it's kind of a little tight knit fraternity at the NPFL, like it is on the Elite Series, and everybody helps everybody and gets to know everybody. So
Yeah, that's
really cool deal.
That makes time go by a little quicker when you're on the road, especially away from your families and things like that. But
For
Messick
sure.
28, thank you for the kind words. Said he's a big fan of the show, and he's almost caught up on the entire series. Which, Jeff, how many is that? Like 120,
Wow.
120 shows or so. Yeah, it's a lot of listening. But Messick, we do appreciate that very much, more than you know. All right, it's 8:02. We're running a little bit late. It is time for the trivia question again. Big shout out to Todd Goad, Pulse Fish Lures, one of my sponsors, one of Brian New's sponsors. Makes some phenomenal baits, coming out with new stuff every few months, and keeps expanding. And we actually are got the Pulse Jig over in the Bass Pro Shops now.
We do, and Cabela's and the online store.
Yep.
And don't want to keep new out of it. We're working on a bait, Brian. Yeah, I know.
No,
We're
I'm
working
kidding.
on a bait with new. It's going to be called the Boss Man.
Imagine that.
I'll let that little secret out. And Jeremy actually named that, but it's going to be a really cool pulse jig. It's going to have its own trailer with it, and we're going to sell the trailer separate as well. So we're hoping to have that out in the next 60 to 90 days as well. So got a lot going at Pulse Fish. It's been a great ride, and I see Mike Anders commented about the guy that owned Pulse originally, Randy Link. He's the one that started it. He designed an incredible bait that we've just been able to kind of bring the scrounger game back to life, I think, and I think we make the best one in the industry. So
Oh, hands
I know
down.
I know we're running a little behind, but wanted to get that in.
Absolutely. Well, again, trivia question giveaway is for over $100 in Pulse Fish lures, including some of the Night Vibes, Pulse Jig, spinning PJs, a tumbler, all kinds of the cool tumbler that Todd's actually drinking out of. Not the exact one he's drinking out of. We'll send you a new one, but yeah, a lot of cool stuff. So thanks again to you, Todd, and Pulse Fish for all the support and giving the fans an opportunity to win such an awesome prize pack. But all right, here we go. Trivia question time. Don't let me screw this up. I will not give away the answer. Jeff's looking at me like I'm getting ready to screw this up.
No, I'm trying to remember what the question is. I got it.
You don't even know. You're not even watching the feed. Does anybody know the answer besides Todd? It doesn't matter. Todd and I's the only one that needs to know the answer. You don't know the answer. Do you know the answer?
Adam Savage probably knows the answer.
Adam Savage might know the answer.
He might.
All right, so that gave away too much information right there. Here we go. Everybody knows that was watching the show. Todd finished 10th place at the last NPFL event. Okay, going into day 3 at that event, Todd made a great comeback. We need to know exactly what place Todd was in after day 2 before finishing the event in day 3 in 10th place. We need to know what place he was in after day 2, okay, before he ended up finishing the tournament in day 3 in 10th place. Knock it out, boys and girls.
Here come the numbers.
Here they come. Oh,
got a winner.
got a winner. Same one. We all got a.
It's my dad.
Oh, no. That doesn't count. Now somebody's going to get it off of that, but that doesn't count. Sorry, Gary, we love you, but immediate family cannot win the trivias. I imagine if he needs some pulse fish stuff, he
gets his share.
probably get his fair share.
He gets his share of care
Not have a
packs.
winner yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
That's
pretty
okay.
much more or less just gave it away, but we still need an answer. We
Hey,
still
Dad.
need a correct
All right,
answer.
Tyler Sturgeon.
Dad said,
You got
"Ha,
one?"
ha."
Yeah.
Oh, Adam's
Adam
being
said, "I
nice.
won't
He said he
answer."
wouldn't answer.
Yeah.
You need to take Adam some pulse jigs just because of that.
For
At
sure.
the next MPFL.
Tyler Sturgeon.
Tyler Sturgeon? I see. I don't even have that.
Yep, I got it.
All right, Tyler Sturgeon. Tell him what the answer was, Todd.
It was 50th place.
50th place. Todd was in 50th place, jumped all the way up to 10th after the second day, and ended up finishing the event in 10th place, which is a phenomenal jump. Great improvement from day 2. And Tyler, send us a message on Facebook, okay, with your shipping information. Todd will get this package out to you ASAP. And yeah, I think is that it?
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right, so Todd, you know our slogan.
Yeah, if we can't go fishing.
We're gonna sit right here and talk fish. We'll see y'all next time.